I dumped my fiancé 3 weeks before our wedding and changed my autopilot life. I used to believe that life was a series of checkpoints. Graduate from college, get a stable job, buy a house, get married, have kids, and so on. Each milestone was like a badge of honor that I was supposed to collect on my journey to becoming a successful adult. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I became so focused on checking off these boxes that I forgot to ask myself if I even wanted to achieve those things in the first place. I graduated from college at 22 with a degree in marketing. It wasn't something I was particularly passionate about, but it seemed practical. My parents were happy with my choice. In fact, they were more than happy. They were proud. I could see it in the way they told their friends about my degree, how they boasted about my bright future. I felt a sense of satisfaction, not because I was excited about my future, but because I had made them proud. I had done what was expected of me. But even in college, there were signs that this wasn't the path I truly wanted. I remember sitting in lectures, feeling a strange sense of detachment. My professors would talk about market trends, consumer behavior, and branding strategies. And while it was all interesting on a superficial level, it never resonated with me on a deeper level. I was good at the work, sure. I got decent grades, completed my projects on time, and participated in group discussions. But it always felt like I was playing a role, not living my truth. There were moments of doubt, whispers in my mind asking, "Is this really what you want?" But I brushed them aside. I told myself that everyone feels this way sometimes, that it was just a part of growing up. After all, how many people truly love their jobs? How many people wake up every day excited about what they do? I convinced myself that this was just the reality of adulthood, that passion was a luxury, not a necessity. After graduation, I landed a job at a mid-sized company right away, working in their marketing department. It was a decent job with good benefits, and I was lucky to have it, or so I told myself. My parents were thrilled when I got the offer, and their excitement was contagious. I remember calling them the day I received the news, hearing the pride in their voices as they congratulated me. It was a moment of validation, confirmation that I was on the right path. But the work was monotonous. My days were filled with endless meetings, reports, and deadlines. I would sit at my desk, staring at spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, wondering if this was all there was. The office was a sea of gray. Gray walls, gray cubicles, gray faces. Everyone seemed to be moving in slow motion, shuffling from one task to the next without any real sense of purpose. I found myself going through the motions without much enthusiasm. The spark that I had hoped would ignite after landing the job never came. My days blurred together, each one indistinguishable from the last. I told myself this was normal, that this was what adulthood looked like. I had done what I was supposed to do, and now I just had to keep going. There were moments of clarity, brief flashes where I questioned the path I was on. I would look around the office and see people who had been there for 10, 15, even 20 years. They seemed content, but there was something hollow in their eyes. I wondered if they had ever felt the way I did, if they had ever questioned their choices, or if they had simply accepted their fate. And then I would push those thoughts away, burying them under layers of routine and obligation. At 25, I bought a small condo. It wasn't my dream home, but it was mine, and it felt like a step forward. I remembered the day I signed the papers, how the real estate agent handed me the keys with a smile. "Congratulations," she said. "You're a homeowner now." It was supposed to be a moment of triumph, a milestone on the path to success. I decorated it with the basics: a couch, a bed, a dining table. It was functional, but it didn't feel like a home. It was just a place where I slept and stored my belongings. My friends congratulated me, and my parents were proud, but I felt an odd sense of emptiness. I kept telling myself that this was just part of the process, that the satisfaction would come later. But deep down, I knew something was missing. The condo was in a nice neighborhood, close to work, with all the amenities I could need. But every time I walked through the door, I felt a strange sense of detachment. The walls were bare, the furniture was generic, and there was no warmth, no personality. It was a space that reflected the life I was living, a life that was functional but devoid of passion. I tried to fill the void with material things. I bought new furniture, added some artwork to the walls, and even got a pet, a cat named Luna. She was a sweet, affectionate creature, and I loved having her around. But even with Luna's presence, the condo still felt empty. It was as if the space itself was a reflection of my inner state, hollow, unfulfilled, and devoid of true meaning. By 28, I was in a relationship with a man named Ethan. He was kind, stable, and our relationship was comfortable. We met through mutual friends, and things progressed naturally. We moved in together after a year, and everyone assumed we'd eventually get married. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I loved him the way I thought I was supposed to. Ethan was everything I thought I should want in a partner. He was reliable, responsible, and he cared about me deeply. We had a good life together. We went on vacations, hosted dinner parties, and spent our weekends exploring the city. From the outside, it looked like we had it all. But on the inside, I felt a growing sense of unease. There was no passion, no spark. Our relationship was based on routine, on comfort, but not on the kind of love that made my heart race. I convinced myself that love wasn't always about fireworks, that it was about companionship and stability. I thought that maybe with time, I would grow into the kind of love I saw in movies and read about in books. But as the months turned into years, that love never came. I found myself going through the motions, playing the role of a devoted partner, but feeling increasingly disconnected from Ethan. I cared about him, of course, but there was a part of me that was missing. Part of me that yearned for something more, something deeper. I tried to push those feelings aside, telling myself that this was just a phase, that every relationship had its ups and downs. But the truth was, I was living a lie. I was pretending to be happy, pretending to be in love, because I didn't know what else to do. I was afraid of being alone, afraid of disappointing everyone who had invested in our relationship. Around the time I turned 30, Ethan proposed. It was a beautiful gesture, and I said yes because it felt like the right thing to do. My friends were thrilled, my parents overjoyed. But deep down, I felt a gnawing sense of dread. I brushed it off as pre-wedding jitters, telling myself that everyone felt this way before taking such a big step. But as the wedding day approached, the dread grew stronger. I started having panic attacks, something I had never experienced before. I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, unable to breathe. During the day, I felt like I was moving through a fog, disconnected from everything around me. I kept pushing through, determined to make it to the finish line, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to make a huge mistake. The proposal should have been a moment of joy, a celebration of our love and commitment. But instead, it felt like a trap, like I was being pulled deeper into a life that wasn't mine. I wanted to be excited. I wanted to feel the love and happiness that everyone else seemed to feel, but all I could feel was fear. I remember the night Ethan proposed. We were at our favorite restaurant, the one where we had our first date. He had reserved a private table by the window, overlooking the city lights. The atmosphere was perfect. Soft music, candlelight, a bottle of our favorite wine, and then, as the dessert arrived, he got down on one knee and asked me to be his wife. Everyone in the restaurant turned to watch, their faces filled with anticipation. I could see the joy in Ethan's eyes, the love he had for me. And in that moment, I felt an overwhelming pressure to say yes. So I did. I smiled, I said the words, and I let him slip the ring onto my finger. The restaurant erupted in applause, and I forced myself to smile, to act like I was the happiest woman in the world. But inside, I was screaming. I wanted to run, to escape the situation, but I couldn't. I had made my bed, and now I had to lie in it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, with friends and family congratulating us, talking about wedding plans, and toasting to our future. I played along, but all I could think about was how trapped I felt. 3 weeks before the wedding, I hit a breaking point. I was at work, sitting in yet another pointless meeting, when I suddenly felt like I couldn't breathe. The walls of the conference room seemed to close in on me, and I had to get out. I excused myself, ran to the bathroom, and locked myself in a stall. I sat on the floor, gasping for air, tears streaming down my face. I didn't understand what was happening to me, but I knew I couldn't keep living like that. That evening, after Ethan went to bed, I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing, replaying every decision I had made up until that point. And that's when it hit me. I had been living my life on autopilot. I had been so focused on doing what I thought I was supposed to do, following the script that society had laid out for me, that I had completely ignored my own desires, my own passions, my own happiness. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. I knew I couldn't go through with the wedding. I couldn't continue living a life that wasn't mine. But the thought of breaking off the engagement, of disappointing everyone, of starting over, it was overwhelming. I didn't know where to begin, but I knew I had to make a change. I had spent years convincing myself that this was the life I wanted, that this was the path to happiness and success. But now, faced with the reality of my choices, I could no longer lie to myself. I knew I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I spent the day walking around the city, trying to clear my head. I wandered through parks, sat by the river, and let my thoughts flow freely. By the end of the day, I felt a sense of clarity that I hadn't felt in years. I knew what I needed to do, even if it scared me. That night, I sat down with Ethan and told him the truth. I told him that I couldn't marry him, that I had been lying to myself and to him for too long. He was shocked, hurt, and confused, but he listened. I explained that it wasn't about him, that he was a good man, but that I needed to find myself before I could be with anyone else. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had. It was also the most honest. Ethan moved out a few days later. I quit my job the following week. It was a leap into the unknown. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. I didn't have a plan, but I knew that I needed to take some time to figure out who I really was, what I really wanted. I remember the day I quit my job. I walked into my boss's office, my resignation letter in hand, and felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. My boss was surprised. Of course, he had no idea what had been going on in my head, but he was understanding, even supportive. As I walked out of the office for the last time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was free, but also terrified. I had no job, no relationship, no clear direction, but I had something far more important: the freedom to explore, to discover, to create a life that was truly my own. I spent the next few months rediscovering myself. I traveled to places I had always wanted to visit, took up hobbies that I had long neglected, and reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college, and it brought me a sense of peace and fulfillment that I hadn't felt in years. Traveling was a revelation. I had always dreamed of exploring new places, experiencing different cultures, and seeing the world through fresh eyes. But I had never allowed myself the time or freedom to do it. Now, with no job and no commitments, I finally had the chance. I visited small towns and big cities, stayed in cozy bed and breakfasts and bustling hostels, met people from all walks of life. Each new place was a reminder of the world's vastness, of the endless possibilities that lay before me. In the quiet moments, sitting on a mountaintop or walking along a deserted beach, I found a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. I realized that life didn't have to be a series of checkboxes or milestones, that it could be an open-ended journey, full of surprises and detours. I didn't have to know exactly where I was going. I just had to keep moving forward. Painting became my sanctuary. I set up a small studio in my condo, filling the space with canvases, paints, and brushes. I would lose myself in the colors and shapes, letting my emotions flow onto the canvas. It was a form of therapy, a way to express the feelings I had buried for so long. Through painting, I reconnected with a part of myself that I had forgotten, a part that was creative, passionate, and alive. Reconnecting with friends was both challenging and rewarding. I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in years, unsure of how they would react. But to my surprise, most of them welcomed me back with open arms. We shared stories, laughed about old times, and forged new connection. These friendships became a source of strength, reminding me that I wasn't alone on this journey. As the months went by, I began to see my life with new eyes. I realized that I didn't need to follow anyone else's script, that I could create my own path, on my own terms. I didn't need to be married by 30, or have a certain job, or live in a certain place to be happy. I could define success and happiness for myself. I started a new career as a freelance artist, something I was truly passionate about, It wasn't an easy path. There were financial struggles, moments of doubt, and the constant challenge of finding new clients. But for the first time in my life, I was doing something that I loved, something that felt meaningful and fulfilling. My art became a reflection of my journey, each piece telling a story of growth, change, and self-discovery. I began to exhibit my work in local galleries, and the response was overwhelming. People connected with my art in ways I never expected. They saw their own stories, their own struggles, and their own triumphs in the colors and shapes I created. I moved into a small, cozy apartment that felt like home, filled with things that brought me joy. It wasn't the biggest or most luxurious place, but it was mine, and it reflected who I was. I filled it with art, books, plants, and memories from my travels. Every corner of the apartment told a story, reminding me of the journey I had taken to get there. I also reconnected with my family in a way that felt authentic and real. My parents, who had always supported my decisions, were surprised by the changes I had made, but they were also proud of me. For the first time, I felt like they saw me for who I truly was, not just for the milestones I had achieved. We had long, honest conversations about my journey, about the choices I had made, and about the expectations that had shaped my life. These conversations were difficult at times, but they brought us closer together. My parents began to understand that success wasn't just about checking off boxes, that it was about finding happiness, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose. But perhaps the most important change was learning to love myself, to accept myself for who I am, flaws and all. I realized that I didn't need to be perfect, that I didn't need to meet anyone else's expectations to be worthy of love and happiness. I learned to embrace my imperfections, to see them as part of what made me unique. There were moments of doubt, of loneliness, of fear. There were times when I questioned my choices, when I wondered if I had made a mistake. But I learned to embrace those moments, to see them as part of the process of growth. I learned to trust myself, to listen to my own voice rather than the voices of others. I still don't have everything figured out, and I probably never will. But that's okay. I've learned that life isn't about reaching some final destination. It's about the journey, about growing and evolving along the way. And for the first time in my life, I'm excited about the journey I'm on. Looking back, I'm grateful for the crisis that forced me to reevaluate my life. It was painful, yes, but it was also the catalyst for my transformation. It taught me that it's never too late to change, never too late to become the person you were always meant to be. So to anyone out there who feels stuck, who feels like they're living a life that isn't theirs, I want you to know that change is possible. Scary, it's hard, but it's also worth it. You deserve to live a life that makes you happy, a life that feels true to who you are, and it's never too late to start. As I continue on this journey, I'm constantly reminded that life is unpredictable, that it doesn't always go according to plan. But that's what makes it beautiful. The detours, the unexpected twists and turns, the moments of doubt and discovery, they all add to the richness of the experience. I'm no longer afraid of uncertainty. I've learned to embrace it, to see it as an opportunity for growth and change. I've let go of the need to control every aspect of my life, and in doing so, I've found a sense of freedom that I never knew was possible. I'm excited about the future, about the possibilities that lie ahead. I don't know where this journey will take me, but I'm ready to face whatever comes my way. I'm ready to live my life on my own terms, create a story that is uniquely mine. And as I look back on the path I've taken, I'm filled with gratitude for the lessons I've learned, the people I've met, and the experiences that have shaped me. I've come to understand that success isn't about reaching a certain milestone or achieving a specific goal. It's about living a life that feels true to who you are, a life that brings you joy and fulfillment. So here's to the journey, to the ups and downs, to the moments of clarity and confusion, to the growth and transformation that comes from embracing your true self. Here's to living a life that is authentically, unapologetically yours. And if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's this: trust yourself. Trust your instincts, your passions, your desires. Don't be afraid to question the path you're on, to make changes, to take risks. You are the author of your own story, and you have the power to create a life that is meaningful, fulfilling, and true to who you are. The journey is yours. Embrace it, love it, and never stop growing.